Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod. I'm here to talk about the season finale of Survivor 45 titled Living the Survivor Dream. Where we last left off, Drew was just voted out of the game, with us wondering, did Dee tell Austin that she was voting Drew out? Before I dive in, I put a link to my Survivor 45 playlist in the description for the video, and if you like the channel, please consider subscribing. I do weekly updates, and if I could hit 500 subscribers before January, I'm gonna go back and revisit Survivor Borneo. So let's dive into it. Jeff opens the show telling us that the story has been all along about relationships and that there's a division between personal and game, and that's apparently been the theme of the season. I didn't really think this season, more than any other season, had more game or relationships than others. After the previous tribal, the final five go to their new camp where they have to start over, but why? By the way, the merged tribe name is Dukuwaka. I've been avoiding saying it, I don't know why, but let future historians know the new tribe is Dukuwaka. So they return to camp and Austin tells us he really didn't know that Drew was going home. He asks Dee for an explanation, but still refers to her as his number one in confessional. He tells her that if he knew about the vote, he probably would have saved Drew with his amulet. Austin is cool with Dee lying to him because he is a simp for her. They say that they're homies and they have a romantic time at the beach. Back at camp, Katurah has found a new thing to be annoyed about, Dee and Austin's relationship. She says that it's disgusting and tells Julie and Jake that they need to break up the pair as Dee and Austin hold hands on the beach. The next day, they spot a box on the beach with a note saying that they need to count items to make a combination to win an advantage. The challenge feels somehow inspired by Outlaster on Roblox, so they instantly take off to count the items. Jake says he has no room for error, so he's taking his time to count the items. Dee and Austin are working together, which seems to really be helping. Julie is the first to the lock and gets it wrong, leading to a montage of everyone getting it wrong. Lots of errors. Jake is matching the numbers to the players who have one survivor. He gets JT, Denise, and Gabler. I think it might have just been easier to just remember the numbers. Jake gets the combination first and wins an advantage in the immunity challenge. At the challenge, Jeff snatches that necklace from Dee because up for grabs immunity is. To win immunity, they have to crawl or go kneecap by kneecap, as Jeff would say, to get a machete and release sandbags, unlock numbers, do another combination to unlock keys, and then solve the Michelle Fitzgerald's foot honorary stack 'em puzzle. The winner gets a trip to the sanctuary where good things happen with a steak dinner and wine if they like. Jake says he like. Jake's advantage is that 2 of his sandbags are already sunk and he only needs to do 1. Jeff makes this advantage sound like it's no big deal, but it's a big advantage. The challenge starts and the crawl is light work. Jake hits his first sandbag before anyone else even gets one and moves on with a quick lead. Jake solves his combination but forgets his keys as the show dunks on him as usual, zooming in on the keys on the ground. Eventually, they're all at the puzzle, with Julie being the last one to get there. Austin starts crushing his, and Jake is looking over and copying. They yet again zoom in on Jake, forgetting a piece on the side of his puzzle and being terrible at this, so Austin ends up winning the challenge, and yes, he does kick the puzzle. Jeff strolls over to point out to Jake that his missing piece was there the whole time, which is really shaming Jake for like no reason. Then they focus on Jake throwing his piece in the air and not being able to catch it, and the editors hate this guy. Austin invites Jake on his reward. As they leave, Jake tells us he's looking for the last piece of a move that he can make on his own, and he wants to use his idol to do it. Back at camp, Katurah tells Julie that she wants to vote for Dee. Julie is not down. She wants Jake out. Katurah rolls her eyes and says, okay, let's go talk to her about Jake. So they do. Dee says she's down. Of course she's down. Austin says that he brought Jake to the sanctuary because he knows that Jake will spill all of his secrets, and Jake instantly tells Austin that he has an idol and is playing it on himself, and tells Austin that he wants Julie out. When they get back, Jake tells Austin don't tell anyone. Austin instantly tells Dee. Now Dee starts considering voting for Katurah instead. Jake tells Katurah about his idol and that he's saving himself, and Katurah starts pitching Dee's name to Jake over Julie. Jake weighs out saving himself or Katurah. At the beach, Julie tells Dee that she wants Jake out, and Dee tells Julie about Jake's idol. Dee and Austin talk, and Austin considers voting for Julie instead. Dee is not down for this. Katurah and Jake strategize again, and he says that he's voting for Dee, and they zoom in on his eyes. Katurah says, I don't trust those eyes. He swears on his Nana that he's voting for Dee. So coming into this tribal, literally anyone but Austin could go home, and at tribal, Kendra seems miffed that Austin won immunity. Jeff shames Jake for squandering his advantage in the challenge, and then points out that Jake missed his puzzle piece. I don't know if it's cool for Jeff to embarrass Jake in front of the jury like this. Julie says she's been dodging bullets and she's not sure if she can survive the night. At tribal, Jake brings up the conundrum that Jeff was waxing at the start, relationships versus game, saying it's both, and Jeff agrees, so why is it such a big deal? They get to voting. Katurah in her voting confessional says she's changing her vote because she thinks everyone's voting for her, but they don't show her vote. Jeff asks them if they have any idols, and Jake asks Jeff if he would like to see his Tony impression. He does a pretty good Tony impression, but ends up playing his idol for Katurah. Jeff reads the votes. Katurah does not count. Jake says yes. Then Jake, and he says, oh, bleep. Then 1 vote for D and 2 votes for Julie. So let me get out my Jeff Probst whiteboard. So I guess Austin voted for Julie because he was scared of the idol. D voted for Katurah. Julie voted for Jake. Jake voted for D, and Katurah last minute changed her vote from D to Julie. They really did a great job painting everyone's strategy coming into this. On the way out, Julie hugs Katurah and tells her that she should go to law school, and she tells D to win this thing. Jake turns to Katurah and says, you made me swear on my nana, dude. What the hell? So here we have to say goodbye to Julie. Julie was a fun character. I really like her facial expressions, and she gave some really unhinged and chaotic confessionals this season. The segment where Julie was going rogue at camp with Austin's idol and running around strategizing and then ended up nullifying a unanimous vote against her was a really fun episode, probably the best episode of the season. Julie's biggest strengths are that she was really good at challenges and also a really loyal ally. Nobody was ever questioning her loyalty at any point in the game. Also, I guess she had a good social game. Everyone was referring to her as Mama, and it was such a big narrative for her that she was the mama and she was such a big target because of it. But did she really have that great of a relationship with the other survivors? Thinking back, she never was really strategizing with anyone or getting anyone on her side to do anything she needed. She really only ever had D on her side. Everyone else wanted her out and disrespected her at every turn. Personally, especially this season, I got really tired of this mama narrative. Like, when you think about all of the attributes that can make someone threatening, being an older mother, I hear the argument that maybe it gives you a talking point at Final Tribal Council, but it definitely just doesn't automatically give you a win. I think we've probably seen more older moms lose Final Tribal Council than win it. I wouldn't mind seeing Julie play again. I think she was a really great competitor. I actually really did want to see her Final Tribal. So bye, Julie. Hope to see you soon. After Tribal, back at camp, Jake sums up the strategizing for the gang. He explains to D and Austin that Katurah switched it up on him. Katurah throws Jake to the wolves, saying that she didn't trust him. He says, how are you going to make me swear on something and then not go with it? And he's being a big baby about this. At this point, Jake has blown his shot. His big move yet again was a flop, and Katurah is kicking herself over it though because she kind of blew it too. Now she's in the final 4 with D and Austin, who love each other and have each other's backs. The next day, Jeff confiscates Austin's idol because it is up for a Grabby Award. In the final immunity challenge, they have to stack ceramic pots with a long stick, navigating stepping over a ropey apparatus which would knock their potties off if they knock into it. The challenge starts, and from the beginning it seems like it's D's to lose. She's in the lead and they all kind of catch up. Austin knocks down his stack pretty far in, and Jake is racing through it to catch up to D. It's pretty impressive how fast Jake is going without knocking over his stack, and you know that the cameraman is waiting for him to mess up. The classic Survivor theme starts playing as D and Jake race to a victory. Jake has a near collision with the bulls but doesn't drop any. Katurah starts cheering Jake on, and on the way back, Jake hits the ropes and knocks down his whole stack, giving D some time to freeze, breathe, and continue. As he's resetting, Jake starts stepping on or marching on his apparatus instead of trying to step through it. Jeff says, Jake, if you break that challenge, you're out. He keeps going and he breaks the challenge. Jeff says, Jake, you're out. And he says, you've got to be kidding me. But like, what was this bad attitude and also this behavior? It was so icky to me. Katurah then knocks down her whole stack, and D has a perfect run at this challenge. She wins the final immunity challenge and her 3rd individual immunity. She drops to her knees crying, and I think that she feels pretty good that she has this game sewn up at this point. She talks about how she was stacking her pots and thinking of her parents and the American dream. On the way out, Jake apologizes to Jeff for breaking the challenge, and he tells us that he has a snowball's chance in hell, but he has to keep rolling and wishes he was a bigger snowball. Back at camp, Dee flirtily calls Austin a loser and tells us that she's won the most immunities this season. She opens the floor to conversations and feels like she's done enough to not put herself in fire. Good for her. I don't think anyone should put themselves in fire unless they have no game, but Jake wants Dee to send him to fire because, like I said, he has no game. He just wants to do something, and she's like, okay, whatever, you can do it. Dee tells Katurah that she sees Katurah as a jury threat and that she should work on her fire. This seems like a pretty obvious choice for Dee to take her simpy boyfriend who sucks at the game to the final 3, and this is Katurah's worst nightmare, as she says she could only blame herself because she switched her vote at the last tribal. Katurah practices for the challenge, and for me, Katurah is my favorite to win in fire against Jake. Dee is sure that Jake will beat Katurah in fire, but why? He's messed up like everything so far, and he's even messing up in his practicing. Austin tries to teach Jake to make fire, and Austin sees that Jake is terrible at fire, like terrible. Austin reports back to Dee as he does, and she is shocked to hear that Jake is awful at this. Dee is conflicted. She doesn't want to send Austin Austin into fire because she doesn't want to pad Austin's resume. At Tribal Council, Katurah tells Jeff that Dee told her she's intimidated by her and sees her as a threat, which really made Katurah look good to the jury. Katurah says she keeps her game moves hidden not to look like a jury threat, which brings out a skeptical eyebrow tightening from Emily on the jury. They talk a little bit about the strategizing back at camp, but pretty much get straight to the decision. Dee says that she's bringing Austin to the finale, and Kelly says, wow. Jake and Katurah get to the fire making, and Kendra says, let's go. I hope Kendra got to have a beer before this. She deserves it. She's been a delight. The fire making starts. Jeff is giving them tips as they do it. I wish that he didn't. Jake gets a flame pretty quickly and starts adding sticks. Katurah gets a flame and it goes out quick. Jake ends up being calm and cool and slowly builds up his flame. His fire hits the ropes, and Austin and Dee are celebrating on the sidelines, saying it's over and it's done, final 3, probably making them look bad in front of the jury. So Jake ends up winning the fire making challenge and hugs Katurah and tells her that she'd make an awesome lawyer. Jake gets emotional looking at his big fire, and he says he wants to give his 15-year-old self a hug and tell him that he can follow his dreams. Jake makes a whole acceptance speech for his fire. Katurah gives a goodbye and reveals that she's a lawyer and expresses gratitude. Bruce blows her a slow kiss from the sidelines. So goodbye, Katurah. I think Katurah was a really fun character. It seemed like she was always grumpy about something. Usually she was annoyed with Bruce, and Katurah's annoyance with Bruce was really a highlight of the pre-merge. From a storytelling standpoint, I never really felt like they were telling the story of Katurah winning. I feel like her game was strongest pre-merge, pre-swap, when she was on Bello in the all-women's alliance with Brando on the side. Then all of her allies start getting voted out. She loses Brando, Kendra, and Kelly. She kind of ends up alone in the game with a bunch of strangers, and the people that she does know, she doesn't like them and can't work with them because they're dysfunctional. Given all that, I'm actually pretty impressed that she even made it to the finale. I was impressed with this run from Katurah and wouldn't mind seeing her again, but do get a feeling that this is the last that we're going to see of Katurah on TV. So our final 3 is Austin, Jake, and Dee, and I think that Dee played the best game out of these 3, but I also think that Jake has a lot of original tribe mates on the jury, though I do think that Jake played the worst game out of the 3. Back at camp, Dee says, my family will be proud of me, win or lose, but I'm gonna win though. The final 3 get mimosas and breakfast. Dee says she's living the survivor dream, and she said the thing. They talk about the jury, and we get some amazing glamour shots of the jurors and some jury commentary. Caleb says that Jake had a rough ride and knew the right moves, but people weren't down, kind of a Sandra type argument. Emily says that Jake was the most lied to person in the game and that they all needed him in the game and he could be a dark horse. Bruce says if Jake becomes a trial lawyer at Tribal, he could have his vote. Kelly says that Dee played such a dominant game that people were afraid to vote her out. Julie is obviously riding for Dee and says Dee insulated herself with people who had her back, risked her game for her allies, and Kendra says that Austin built strong alliances and took Survivor by the horns and played the game. I don't see why he played the game more than anyone, but go off, Kendra. Drew says that Austin is his boy and that he's rooting for him, and he never got a vote cast on him. Katurah leaves off wanting to vote for the person who was actively making moves the whole time, not focused on making relationships. Dee says she's ready to go full force, and I'm excited. She tells Austin she'll give him a big hug when he loses. Jake says he's going to argue his ass off. This tribal, more than any, is being advertised like it's going to be a cage match. It's about to go down. Kendra gets it started asking them how they took Survivor by the horns and played the game. Jake says he went spearfishing and busted his ass so hard he broke a challenge. He kind of doesn't answer the question, and Dee gets right to business talking about her family and to be present, really pandering to Kendra. Austin says that he was an alternate on this season, and it's very rare that we get someone admitting that on TV. Katurah asks them about facing their fears. Austin says he was worried about blindsiding people and he had to blindside Julie. Dee agrees and says that she refused to write Julie's name down, and Jake says he had a fear of failure and breaks down talking about failing, ushering one of the many moments this episode where Kendra puts her hand to her heart and is touched. Drew encourages Dee and Austin to shed light on the Reba alliance. Dee says that she had a huge advantage in the game being on Reba. Austin says that he was a big challenge threat and that Dee was scared. Dee says, I was not scared. I did feel safe. Austin and Dee kind of go back and forth here, and Austin says that the Kelly vote was his biggest move in the game and says getting Kendra out was his idea. Dee chimes in and says, no, Kendra was my idea. Emily asks Dee for an example where she made a specific strategic move, and you should always be prepared with this answer for Tribal, and Dee definitely has moves, but she kind of doesn't own any moves and says that she followed her relationships. Jake says that he just didn't want to get voted out, and Drew encourages Jake not to sell himself short and to own his moves. Jake says that Dee and Austin got comfortable and that he was taking shots the whole time. Austin talks about his advantages. Emily points out that Austin inaccurately played his idol, and Dee chimes in, finally with some game, saying that she left Austin out of the Drew vote and that knowing all the information in the game was more valuable than playing an idol. They talk about Jake's idol play at Final 5 and how it didn't go again the way that he wanted it to. Julie asks Dee and Austin about their showmance. Is it real and how did it influence the game? Dee says it was real and it ends up being like a modern Rob and Amber moment. Emily brings up that Austin was supposed to keep the Julie vote where Emily went home a secret and Austin told Dee. Austin says that Dee never told Julie, so it doesn't matter. Dee reveals to Austin that she was the one who told Julie and details the plan, which really was her big move in the game, so she kind of answers Emily's earlier question here. Emily clearly respects Dee for owning up to getting Emily out, and Emily tells Dee that she was coming for her next. They start voting. Julie obviously votes for Dee. Kendra votes for Austin. Emily votes for Dee and says, if you spend 1 penny of this $1 million on that boy, I'll fly to Miami and take it from you. And then Drew votes for Austin. Nobody is shown to vote for Jake. Jeff starts reading the votes and there are alternating votes for Dee and Austin. The jury starts wondering if it'll be a tie, but by a vote of 5-3, the winner of Survivor 45 is Dee. Amazing, fabulous. I'll talk about the final 3 at the end, but first we got our reunion show or gathering and they have a light conversation during this. They talk about relationships and settle that girls are better than boys. They bring in champagne and pizza and Dee talks about her family. They show a clip of Austin finding out that he's going to play the game and not be an alternate. I really hate the reunion on the island right after the winner's announced. Personally, I think if you don't want to do a live reunion, that's fine. Just end the show after the votes. So let's talk about our final 3. In third place with 0 votes to win, we have Jake. A lot of people that I know had Jake as their winner pick. I actually always kind of saw that as a possibility, even though I didn't really want him to win. He was trying, and the ideas of the moves that he was coming up with weren't terrible. If 1 or 2 of the moves that he tried would have been successful, I do think that he would be the winner. And I've been pointing out lately, especially on this episode, that the show dunks on Jake over and over and over again. At times it was kind of rough to watch. Like as a viewer, you want to form your opinion for yourself of these people. So to have the show kind of always highlighting every single thing that he did wrong, I feel like sitting here and rehashing all of it would just really feel like punching down to me. So I'm going to punch up at CBS and at Jeff Probst because you didn't have to show Jake messing up at every single thing that he tried to do the entire season to paint this picture for the one tribal council where he can make fire and vindicate himself. It was a bit too much. I say Jeff because Jeff totally singled Jake out just in this episode. After the challenge, it wasn't necessary to walk over and be like, ooh, look, Jake, here's the piece that you lost because you suck. And then at Tribal, bringing up in front of the jury that Jake squandered his advantage in the challenge. I feel like that shouldn't come up unless the players said it. So we have to say goodbye to Jake here. And as far as the show goes, I think that the show told the story that they want to tell about Jake, and I don't think that we'll see him again. The runner-up of this season is Austin. I'm actually shocked to find out that Austin was an alternate. I feel like if I was casting this show and I saw his audition tape, he would be an instant yes. Especially in the beginning of the season, Austin had it all. He was on a winning tribe, he had a strong alliance, his pockets were loaded with tons of advantages. They went out with the underwater camera to film him spearfishing. They're not just filming everybody spearfishing. Overall, I really got the vibe that he was going to be the new era golden boy, and I still feel like that's the case. Austin was in a really great place to run the game with Drew to the finals, and I think Austin beats Drew in a jury vote, but Austin's undoing ends up being Dee, who he was clearly love struck by and was undermining him every step of the way. So I don't have too much more to say about Austin. I think he's a definite lock for an upcoming Second Chances season. Also, apparently Austin and Dee are still dating, so for him, the prize was love. And finally, our winner here is Dee, and Dee is probably the best, or at least my favorite of the New Era winners. From the start, Dee had this game in a chokehold. Nothing happened without Dee's approval. I have a lot of respect for her. She ran that Reba tribe like a pirate ship. It's crazy because I do feel like she was running the game, but she was surrounded by so many shields that no one actually considered her as a target until the finale. I wasn't really worried that Dee would go home until the final 5 vote, and they really should have voted her out there. It was awesome seeing her play such a dominant game, and also shout out to her big toe. She could not have done this without that toe. It helped her in so many challenges. I want to leave off with this because I do think that we'll see Dee again on Survivor. And I want to ask you in the comments, if Survivor 50 is a big season, let's say Heroes vs. Villains 2, does Dee lying to her boyfriend qualify her to be on the Villains tribe? Anyway, y'all, I don't have too much more to say. I know this is a long video. It was a long episode. If you liked the video, subscribe. I have some really fun off-season Survivor content planned. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about the season finale of Big Brother Reindeer Games. I'll be back in the spring to talk about Survivor 46. Until then, happy holidays. Bye.